What thoughts have you given to preparing for success after prison? I am Michael Santos, and I'm really enthusiastic to share with you this new course. And the module you're going to be going through right now is really just an overview. It's an overview that we created with hopes of earning your trust. I was once inside of a jail where I didn't have any idea of how much time I was going to be facing or what was going to be going on. And as a result of me not thinking about what challenges awaited me, I made a series of really bad decisions. And as you'll read in this course, those bad decisions exposed me to a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. Now, I didn't have any idea really what that meant because I hadn't been in prison before. I was hearing all kinds of messages from people around me telling me that the best way to serve time in prison is to forget about the world outside and just focus on my reputation inside, or focus on what I was going to do while I was inside. And that really put me into a situation that led to a series of really bad decisions. I heard the same thing from my lawyer giving me really bad guidance or advice, at least from my perspective, because he was telling me there's a big difference between an indictment and a conviction. Now, in the federal system, that's generally not the case. And in any event, I knew that I was guilty of the charges brought against me. What I didn't know is that I could make decisions every single day that would put me on a pathway or on a trajectory that would determine whether I was going to go through prison and emerge on this continuing cycle of struggle and difficulty, of unemployment and failure. And just, I think, to use an analogy from Shakespeare, I think it's from Shakespeare, that would talk about a parade of horribles, because that's generally what follows for people that go into the criminal justice system. But if somebody begins the term with this question, how do I prepare for success after prison? Then that individual begins thinking not about what bad decisions may have led him here or what external forces may have led him here. Because sometimes people are in jail or prison because of external forces, whether it's there were no opportunities, whether there wasn't an opportunity for a pathway to employment, whether a person was born into an environment without much guidance in the pathway of education or vocational skills or employment. There's just a lot of problems that could conflict or interfere with a person's decision making. But if we begin right now saying, let's forget about what happened in the past, and instead let's focus on what can we do, given the circumstances that we're in, to begin positioning ourselves for a better life, we can start making better decisions. And as a man who served 26 years in federal prisons of every security level, I have a level of insight that I hope you will find value in. I really have a big place in my heart for anybody who is in jail or prison. I've been home now. I'm filming this segment of this video course in July of 2021, and that means I'm just about to finish my 8th year of liberty. But I can absolutely say with certainty that everything changed for me once I began asking that question about how can I prepare for success after prison? That question should resonate with every individual who's watching this video. Because if you're in a jail or a prison, I know you don't like it. I know that you miss the people you love and you miss the people who love you. But I also know you have choices that you can make every single day. Those choices include the people with whom you associate, the way you position yourself for the right job, if jobs are available in your institution, the activities you pursue, the books that you read, the language that you choose to use, the way that you either smile or try to project an image of happiness and gratitude and just generally a mindset of saying, I want to make people reach their highest potential, or whether you want to be the type of person that instills fear in other people. In prisons, I used to hear a lot that a person has to have respect. But respect in the prison environment differs in fundamental ways from what it means to have respect out here in society. I want you to be thinking about what steps you can take so that the people you meet in society look at you and say, I respect that man. I may not be able to identify with the decisions that put that person in prison, but I can really respect that the way the individual responded to that very difficult sanction. The more thought you give to these questions, the more you are going to empower yourself to find a strategy that will help you prepare for success after prison. When I started the journey, I didn't really know how to answer those questions. It was really reading people that have gone through struggle that helped to influence my own strategy. I remember being locked inside of a high security penitentiary, and I was reading a book by Malcolm X. Well, it was really written by Aldous Haley, but it's called The Autobiography of Malcolm X. And the reason that I could identify with that story was because Malcolm X was inside of a jail cell facing a lengthy sentence. Now, at that time, prison systems were different, sentencing systems were different, and he had an opportunity to get out of prison in what I would call a relatively short time, certainly short compared to the time that I served. But what he did while he was in that jail cell is transform the way that he thought. By changing the way that he thought, he could change the trajectory of his life. And the key, the salient point, is that he really focused on developing his communication skills. That is like a critical tool to prepare for success after prison. We've got to think about the words we use, the way we turn those words into sentences and paragraphs, the way we can express ourselves. The more thought we give to communication skills, the more we can kind of define how we are going to set our adjustment patterns in prison. And I remember when I was reading that book by Malcolm X, there's a passage there that describes him learning to develop his vocabulary just by reading the dictionary. And when the officers would turn off the lights in his cell, he would just scoot himself over by the door so he could capture the light that would shine through the window, and he would continue reading the dictionary, and he would never stop because it was so important for him to prepare for the life he wanted to lead. And we don't want anybody to be victimized by their past bad decisions or wherever they are. Maybe you've never gone to school before. Maybe you've never paid attention in school before. Maybe you don't have access to school right now. But if you have access to a dictionary, you can get inspired by somebody like the story that Malcolm X told. You can get inspired by somebody who was in that situation but developed skills through self-directed learning that empowered him to become one of the most influential orators of his generation. He debated presidents and heads of state and business leaders and leaders from every sector of society. Well, in order to do that, a person needs to really train his or her mind on how to use language effectively. So one of the key components in this course of preparing after success for prison is to develop a vocabulary. Now, in this overview lesson, you didn't see a lot of that, but in all of the lessons that follow, you will see words that are highlighted in bold, and you should make an effort to make sure you understand all of those words. If you do, you put yourself on a pathway to prepare for success. Each lesson also includes a series of open-ended questions. Challenge yourself. Write as much as you care to write, because those lessons of writing are going to help you develop stronger written communication skills, but they will also help you change the way that you think, change the way that you communicate. The other important aspect of this course is you really want to develop strong critical thinking skills. You want to use this course as a vehicle to help you question what you've heard. I know you've heard that same cliche that says you've got nothing coming. I know you've heard these messages that, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. All of that is what the mindset of other people. Your mindset is start with saying, I am going to succeed after prison. But if I'm going to succeed after prison, that means I need to use my time inside to prepare for that success. And so we want you to focus on developing your written communication skills and developing your verbal communication skills. We want you to focus on developing your strong critical thinking skills, and we want you to understand how to develop a self-directed work ethic. Don't do this course because you're going to get a certificate or a milestone credit. Use this course to help you sow the seeds for success after prison, and you will go a long ways toward restoring your confidence and your dignity and your sense of empowerment. Empowerment that generally matters. You don't need the kind of empowerment that allows you to turn the channel on the television set. What you need is the kind of empowerment that convinces you when you come home, you can create your own income stream, or you can position yourself for great and steady employment. I'm so happy that you're a participant in this program, and I look forward to sharing my entire story, but also teaching these lessons that we know you can use to prepare for success after prison. Now, each one of these modules has a little quiz. And so I am a big fan of helping you understand what's going to be in the quiz. So when you're working through the course, make sure that you pay attention to these questions. I'm just going to read them to you and tell you how I would have responded if I were still in there. Here's one of the questions from the quiz. Is a mastermind in one area a mastermind in all areas? And there's 4 answers, but I can just basically give you an analogy. A guy can be a really super talented athlete. I use that analogy of that fella who was a running back for the New England Patriots. I think his name is Aaron Hernandez. Certainly a mastermind of football and sports and athleticism. A genius when it comes to athleticism. But that didn't make him a mastermind of critical thinking skills. You can be successful in one area of your life, but it doesn't necessarily make you successful in all areas of your life. So the answer to that question would have been no. Another question from the quiz. Be aware of this because you'll see it in a lesson plan. What sentence sums up lessons the author learned from Masterminds? Well, one is the best way to serve time is to forget about the world outside and focus on a reputation in prison. That's one option. 2, we define success by the amount of income we earn. 3, the lessons we learn in prison won't have any influence over the people we meet in society. None of those are the answer. Here's the answer. The decisions we make today have a direct influence on our prospects for success tomorrow. If you believe that, you're really on a pathway toward becoming more successful. And I want you to pay attention to how you can use your time today to position yourself for success tomorrow. Even if you have a life sentence, you can empower yourself by thinking about how are my decisions today influencing my ability to influence the decision makers I'm going to meet ahead. You don't know if there's going to be some type of parole initiative that can revisit your sentence. You don't know if a governor is going to be asking for applications for clemency. You don't know about that, but what you do know is what you can do today. And to the extent you think about that, you're going to empower yourself. Remember that on the quiz. Number 3, what type of criminal conviction led the author of the course to prison? Well, I told you that in the book, right? You've got access to my book, Earning Freedom, Conquering a 45-Year Sentence. You've got access to Success After Prison, How I Made $1 Million Within 2 Years of Getting Out, and how you can succeed too. You can get all that information from reading, or you can just look at this quiz. Well, the author was convicted of bank fraud. No, I was not. The author was convicted of robbery. No, I was not. The author was convicted of arson. No, I was not. What's the answer to the quiz? Well, sadly, I was influenced by the movie Scarface. I sold cocaine, and for that reason, I was charged. I went to trial. I was convicted, and I was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. Number 4, what academic discipline did the author say influenced his adjustment in prison? Was it mathematics? Was it English? Was it history? Was it philosophy? Well, if you've worked through the module, you will see that the book that really transformed my life was called A Treasury of Philosophy, which gives it away. That's the 4th option. Philosophy changed my life. And it really began by reading the story of Socrates. And the only reason I identified with that story by Socrates is because Socrates was telling his story from inside of a jail cell. And in all honesty, it was really Plato who wrote the story, telling the story of Socrates. But you can get that in the course. Answer: philosophy is the academic discipline that changed my life. Number 5, how long did the author serve in prison? Less than 5 years? Between 5 and 10 years? Between 10 and 20 years? Or more than 20 years? Well, I served 9,500 days. And if you can't do the math, that's 26 years. That's the answer. I served 26 years in prison, from 1987 until 2013. Number 6, when did the author write that he began preparing for success upon release? Well, you're in a course right now called Preparing for Success After Release, and just like you, I began at the earliest stages of my journey. But the options to this question are when he was within 6 months of his release date, when he was halfway through with his sentence, when he got out of prison, or immediately upon being convicted. Actually, that's probably the best answer of those, when he was within 6 months, when he was halfway through his sentence. But the answer is it was long before I was convicted. Wait a minute. Yeah, I guess that's right, when I was convicted, because the first year of my sentence, I wasn't convicted, and it wasn't that I didn't start reading about philosophy until a jury returned a verdict against me. Then I realized I've got to change my life. And so the correct answer is immediately upon being convicted. Number 7, how many prison sentences did Weldon Long serve? I hope you watched the video about Weldon Long because it's a phenomenal story. He's a guy that went to prison not once, not twice, not 3 times. Well, yeah, 3 times. Weldon Long went to prison 3 times. But he really transformed his life on the 3rd time that he was in prison. And it's one of the most inspiring stories I've ever heard about a guy who goes to prison and transforms his life. And it's the kind of story that I hope you enjoy as well, where regardless of what challenges you're facing right now, you're on a path to become something more. Number 8, in what business did Weldon Long build his fortune? Did he become a successful car salesman? No. Did he become a successful lawyer? No. Did he build a chain of restaurants? No. Weldon Long built his fortune, as you will know from watching the video, by building a successful air conditioning business. Now he's a corporate trainer leading a business that does more than $10 million a year. And he's got a phenomenal story, so I hope that you pay close attention to Weldon Long, a guy who was in prison, became successful on a really massive scale. Number 9, what does the author credit as the first mastermind to influence his prison adjustment? I told you that a little earlier. I gave you some options here. This one might be a little trickier because all of these people influenced my adjustment. Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela, Viktor Frankl, but the first one was Socrates. And I'll still remember putting that book on my chest, lying back in my cell, and thinking about what can I do today to begin preparing for success after my release. I hope you're thinking about that as well. Number 10, what does the word perspective mean? Remember, we're going to invest a lot of time trying to develop our vocabulary. And you may already know what the word perspective means. I know that that's the kind of word I wouldn't have known what it meant when I went to prison. In fact, there's this analogy that Michelangelo says, famous sculptor that lived during the Renaissance, who said the danger of setting goals is not that we set goals that are too high and we never reach them. It's that we set goals that are too low and then we just kind of stop. Well, vocabulary building is one of these types of goals. Sadly, a lot of times when I interact with administrators, they'll tell me that the people in our institution are different from you. They can't do all these things that you did. It's because they see who I am right now. Right now, I'm fundamentally different from the young, frightened kid that went to jail when he was 20, for decisions he made when he was 20 years old. When I went there, I remember what the prosecutor said about me. He said, you know, he had a perspective. There's a use of a perspective. He used to say that if Michael Santos spent every day of his life in an all-consuming effort to repay society, and if he lives to be 300 years old, our community would still be at a significant net loss. Now, even though he made that sentence back in 1987, I still remember his perspective today. The reality is that regardless of where you are right now, you can put yourself on a pathway to become more successful later. So the different options for perspective is: 1, it's a figure of speech; 2, it's pretending to have qualities or beliefs; 3, it's public information being kept secret. The answer to that, none of those. The correct answer is, it's a point of view. The prosecutor who convicted me had a point of view. My job was to change that point of view. Not only his point of view, but the point of view of all the stakeholders and decision makers and people of influence that I would encounter in the future. And if you start thinking in those terms, you are going to begin really training your mind to think like a leader, to think like a mastermind, to think like Malcolm X or Viktor Frankl or Nelson Mandela or Socrates. These are the leaders that help to transform my life, and these are the leaders that I am confident can help you transform your life. It's all about preparing for success after prison. Those preparations begin right now. I hope that I will earn your trust through this course, and I hope that you will work through it diligently. I hope that you will see I am not asking you to do anything that I didn't do and that I am not still doing today. I will always work to prepare for success. I've been out of prison for 8 years now, as I'm making this video, but my heart is still inside of there, and I'm still trying to connect with as many people as I can. It's impossible for me to respond to all the letters I receive, but I am building and I am working, and I hope to communicate with you through these kinds of videos. I am Michael Santos with Prison Professors, and on behalf of our entire team, I want to thank you for participating in our course, and I hope that you will continue preparing for success after prison.